Let's look at a few more features of the interface and some of the functionality. I'd like to concentrate now on the relationship between the browser and layers. And we can use the browser to actually add some layers to the project. So down here I have, if I expand on the browser, and find the depository of the information I'm interested in. So I'm headed down to the GIS database, digging down in, and we're going to the sample data, which is where our Alaska, our Alaska information is. And here I'm going to look for some raster data. And one of these is a land cover image. So if I wanted to add the land cover image as a layer, I can just click on it, hold down, so it's the left click, hold, and drag. And now I've dragged an image of the land cover on top. And this can be adjusted however ordering that you want. For example, I've just put the land cover Alaska over the top, and so we put the rivers on the bottom. So now it's not very useful. So we would want the land cover to be on top of Alaska, and we would probably want the rivers to be on top of the land cover. Let me get them up there. We go. So now we've got a situation where we've got raster imagery and vector imagery. And what I'm going to do is to zoom in quite closely here. And there is a number of ways you can do this. You can use the zoom in button, actually clicking it, and you notice now my mouse becomes a plus sign. So let me draw a box around this area. And getting even closer in, you can see the structure here where this is obviously pixels that represent the land cover, and the lines which represent the rivers, major rivers in this case. Now to get the mouse to something else, I can select different activities. Here's actually a pan. So now this will pan the map around. I can go to zooming out. But over here is kind of an interest. This is identify the features. So in order to identify features, I first have to tell the program what features am I interested in. Am I interested in rivers or Alaska as a shape? And so I'm going to click on rivers. So what I've highlighted here will now, and you'll see my icon has a little eye for information. So I'm going to click on this particular river, and you'll notice that it's highlighted just a section of it. That's part of that line item, and it's identified as the Yukon River. If I click on another area over here, it's still the Yukon River, but it's a different section. So you can see that the Yukon River is really not a singular line, but it's constructed of many, many lines. That line being kind of a double line there that describes how that looks. All of these, though, I can determine it's the Yukon River. If I now try to identify land cover, I don't get as much information. In fact, what I'm actually getting the pixel value. So that's band 8 for that particular pixel. A green pixel is band 7. Back over here, band 8. White pixel, band 9. Blue pixels are zeros. So what's happening here is I have an individual numeric value that's representative of a particular color. So for example, obviously a blue pixel is water, so anything that has a 0 is land cover being water being a 0. And there would be some table that would tell us, what do these actually mean in terms of coloring. And then if I click on Alaska, you can see the entire area has been highlighted, and what it's just done is just said, well, yes, you've found Alaska. So the identify feature selector is a very handy device to investigate what our map is made out of. If I want to dig a little bit further into this and find out, well, is there somewhere where all of these are listed? And the answer is yes. The listing is, so we're going back over here to select. The listing is in, if we right click on rivers and open the attribute table. So here's the attribute table, and if you're familiar with Microsoft Excel, this looks very, very similar. You can manipulate these a little bit, and you can see that we'll go down to the Yukon River. So there's a very large number of lines that represent the Yukon River. Now we can go back and forth between these to find out which individual line. So I've selected up here, select individual features. So I'm going to click on that particular line there, and back to my attribute table. And under my attribute table, I'm going to select show the selected features. So if I've identified that one particular line now, I've got it in a table for back and forth. Now in this particular data of the rivers, the only information that's actually there is the description of what that river is. However, we can add columns and add additional information. So this could have quite extensive information about a particular item on the map. Now, if we were interested in looking at this area quite often, we may have a particular size or particular view. So this is the Yukon Delta, the Yukon River flowing into the Arctic. So we may want to come back to this view often. To help us do that, what we can do is to come up here and select give me a bookmark. So I'm going to show bookmarks here, and I'm going to call this bookmark Yukon. Yukon Delta. And we're going to add that in. So if I close out, and now if I was to get someplace else, I was looking at Alaska, say in this format, and what I'd like to do is to show the bookmarks. I can come back and click on the Yukon Delta and say zoom to the Yukon Delta, and I'm there. So we can get a particular view of the map that we wanted to use for a report or something that's very critical for us, and come back to that often. So it's kind of a handy scenario to use these bookmarks to move around. Okay, so I have a polygon, which is Alaska. And I have line data, which are my rivers. And we have an image, which is individual pixels, which is the land cover. So I'd like to add to this one more. I'd like to add a point file. So I'm down here under shape files. You can see there's quite a number of different things we can add, and I'm going to add the point file. So I'm going to add a vector layer, browse for this, and select the airport shape. Okay, I'm going to turn off my land cover so I can see the shape. So what I have now is in the Yukon Delta, we have found an airport. We may want to know what airport that is, so we can click the investigate button, and airports is highlighted, so we should click on this and find out that's the Emmonak Airport. And you see there's a little bit more information, and it tells us the elevation and so on and so forth. So if I now look at the attribute table for airports, you'll see that there's more information. So I've got to categorize the labels the airport, tells us the elevation, and gives it some identification, what its name is, and stretch this out a little bit, and how is it used. It's used by civilian, public, other, so on and so forth, joint military. So there's classifications of the airport, there's the name of the airport, and so on. So I have point information, and I have line information, and this is data that we've acquired from some source. But suppose we would like to place some of our own data in the program, and that's what I'd like to cover next in how do we create our own data